I want to stop before we go any further and ask you something. If you have a child in school right now, I want you to think about what your child's teacher sees when they walk through that door. Now, I want to tell you what Twanda actually sees because what she told me at the end of our conversation, I have not been able to stop thinking about it. Listen to this.
I had a student, second grader. She was phenomenal, well mannered, hair always done, just bathed, smelled good, always did her homework, hard worker, worried about pleasing her parents
Mm.
and making me happy as her teacher. I found out she was from a divorced home. The mother and the father had a lot of issues. I started to notice she actually would come in better groomed after living with the father opposed to the mother. They would
Mhm.
switch out weeks.
Mhm.
And that was shocking to me because
Yeah.
typically you think the mother, but no. So I can say in my field, looks can be deceiving.
Welcome back to Raising Scholars. I'm Jacquie Langworthy, educator, learning center owner, and a mom who raised two confident, independent scholars. Today, I have a guest who every single parent listening needs to hear from. Not just parents of children who have an IEP, not just parents whose children have been labeled, every parent. Because here's what I know after 15 years in education. Every child has moments where they struggle. Every child has moments where their behavior in the classroom is telling a story that no one has yet decoded. Most parents never get to hear what that story actually is. My guest today, Twanda Hooker, she's spent 16 years in education and has recently transitioned into special education, which means she has seen children from every angle. The general ed classroom, the spaces created for children who just need more. What she has learned in both places applies to every child you have ever loved. Twanda, welcome to Raising Scholars.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know we're getting ready for back to school, so I want you to walk me into your classroom as if it's the first day.
All right. Well, usually, if it's not a class that I followed, I typically see a diverse range of students as far as not technically what they may look like, but their behavior, I should say. When they come in, I see one student, different behaviors, if that makes any sense. Students bring their issues that are happening at home into the classroom. And I say this because even though it's day one, the students bring themselves in with glows and grows. I like to say they come in ready to show off what they know. However, they may lack confidence in areas that they need to grow in. And I, as their teacher, just wants to make them feel comfortable, let them know that the classroom is a safe haven, and getting to know them is the first priority. Therefore, they have a classroom tour. We have a lot of getting to know you activities, team building activities. I give them my educator power speech, which just lets them know my purpose for me being there. And also, I really like the students to tell me what is it that they feel as though I can help them with. Because I'm with elementary age students, and believe it or not, they can express themselves more than what adults may think they can. And I learn a lot from my students, especially with the generation of students we have now during the tech era. And they teach me a lot. And I help them just regulate academically, emotionally, socially, and communicate with their parents. So even on the first day of school, I give parents their updates, what their child is doing. But as far as what it looks vibrant, colorful, welcoming, and it's an environment ready for students to learn. That's one thing they will know. When they come into my classroom, they don't have a choice. They are going to learn, and I'm going to pull the best out of them.
I think that's one of the things that we connected on most is I'm the same way. You will learn. You
Yes.
will learn today. I think if there's any educators that are listening, it's probably the same thing that you feel when you're passionate about education. You really want to pour into them. What I recall what you're saying is that, even the space may be ready to learn, but you're getting a diverse group of students from the spectrum of where they're at to learn. I'm sure, in the special ed space that you're in, you're working with students, kindergarten through
Yes.
second grade. So not only do you have a array of an age gap, the learning gap is different. Not
Yes.
everybody is the same. My children are 16 months apart. And even when they were little, that 16 months felt like a lot when,
Yeah.
one is knowing their ABCs and the other one's still trying to figure it out. So you are bringing all of this in. And like you said, not only are you bringing in just students with different abilities and skill levels, because that's any classroom, right? You're
Yes.
also bringing in what's happening at home into the classroom. And I think that's one thing as parents that we forget about is that what's ever happening at home comes into the classroom. It's a part of just how they're going to do. I see it with my students here at the center. If they're hungry because they didn't have a snack, and we have kids that may not had dinner last night, and so they're coming into the classroom with that as well.
Yes.
Wow. And then you gave us the view of just what it looks like. Every student struggles, right? Is there something that you notice as a common thread that you see that some of your students struggle with?
Yes. What I notice the most, despite gender, is confidence
Mm.
and perseverance. I love the title of this podcast because I explain to my students what a scholar is on the first day. And from here on out, that's what I will be calling you because you are one. And what stands out to me the most is confidence. I noticed that. That is the main thing that I have to build in a student and make them realize that they can do it. And that's where the perseverance piece comes in. So I have to teach some of them to be unapologetically themselves, even as a kid. Some students are so hard on themselves. It's sad. It really is. If a student, for example, one student is brilliant, first grader, he's phenomenal. Anger, emotional issues, he gets one wrong, he's beaten. I mean, you would think it's the end of the world. I'm dumb, I'm stupid, just for getting one wrong. Forget all of the other positive and amazing characteristics about you. They just hone in. And that's what I notice about special needs students, also in the general ed. However, when dealing with special needs students with behavioral challenges, that emotion, the feelings can either make or break them. So building their confidence, letting them know their strength, helping them recognize it. So what I seen the most was the confidence and perseverance. And that's what I love teaching because they need to know just in life, you don't give up. I mean, you're just going to give up, even though this is a problem, but persevering, you need to know how to do that as an adult. You'll have a job. I want to make it things where it's relatable to real world. You have to do that with special needs students, all students. However, I really realized when transitioning the importance of being able to make it anything we do as real world as possible. They'll say it. Why do I have to know this? They'll challenge you. Gotta tell them why, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. My first interview that I did on this podcast, it was a parent of mine, and she has 3 boys, and her youngest is the challenging one. He's the one who will challenge you, and he needs to know the why he needs to do everything else. And it's really interesting because he challenges me every time in my center. But I was like, that's one of the things that's going to make him great. You talked about, and I really want to hit on this because I'm sure there are people out there listening, and I see it too. Confidence is huge. And actually, I'm really excited that that's what you said because as many years as I've been doing this, 15 years, I always talk about one of the things that I want to be able to instill in them is that they can do it. Even though we teach math and reading here, it's not about the math, it's not about the reading. It's really about building confidence that they know it.
Yes.
Because that's what is going to propel them to be able to try something new.
Right.
To be able to say, I did this before. It's like that muscle memory that they have that I've done hard stuff before and I can try this as well. And that's really huge for, I think, at any age. And the earlier that we can build that in them, the better. Because if you're older and you lack that confidence, it's a lot harder. You never had that muscle memory to go back and say, can I really do this?
Right.
And I think we can get stuck in a rut. You've seen students from every spectrum. And when we see children that are struggling in the classroom, before the label, before there's any evaluation, what are you actually observing? Let's speak to the students that do have IEPs or eventually may need something.
Being an educator for 16 years, it always startled me, even being a first grade teacher, second grade teacher, how students can come to me and have so many deficits. Like, how can you be so young and the gap is so big and you've only been in school for 2 or 3 years? So I hate to say it, but a lot of the times when it's the students that have behavioral issues or special needs to the point where they have an IEP because they're maybe autistic or their attention span interferes with their learning. So they just push the students along. And I feel like even if I should say I receive students who are challenging, have numerous deficits, it just makes me think, well, what was happening at home too? I would communicate with the teachers. Most of them would just say, well, it's an attendance issue, or they come to school half a day, they don't do any homework or this or that. But it's still like, well, what is being done? Are you offering programs like Kumon or a Academic Power Hour, which I loved because to me, it was still more like one-on-one or small group instruction to really focus on those gaps the students have. And that's my goal. Like, I love working in schools where I don't like to use that term, but I would say where students need more academic support. And it's just sad because students do want to do it. They do. Elementary students want to please. They want to be successful. So when I see those challenges, I do as much as possible to communicate with the parents, offer all the help that I can offer. Also ask the parents, what do you expect from me? Because sometimes it is very challenging when you tell a parent that your child is here, but that's when exemplars come in. I have to pull out a grade level, something. This is where your child should be. Now, your child should be here. However, this is what we can do. It takes a village to raise a child is very important because it does. And how the school environment should still be transferred at home. It's a two-way street.
It is. That's actually a great segue because one of the questions I wanted to know was, has there ever been a time where you wanted to say something in a parent teacher conference, but you just held back? And if you could say it, what would it have been?
Well, there were some times, especially when it comes to students involved in extracurricular activities, and it would just make me so upset if I'm addressing something in a conference and you want to bring up, well, my son or daughter is involved in X, Y, and Z after school. There's no time to do this. By the time they get home, they're eating dinner. There's basically, to me, when I hear that, there's no extra time for your child to grow their brain and fill those gaps. I mean, even thinking about this program, 30 minutes, I mean, that's all it takes. But you would prefer for your child to be at practice for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't think some parents realize that you have to have some skills eventually, especially as you get older, to be able to participate in these sports, whether or not it's not sports, learning a new instrument. You need to learn how to read music. You need to know math for certain sports or extracurricular activities. So there were times when I would hear things such as that, and I would just have to keep my mouth shut. And I would still give my recommendations, but I know I would just really want to say, are you serious?
I understand.
Are you kidding me? You're telling me that going to soccer practice or football practice, which lasts until 6:30, is more important than your child's education. However, when you see the grades and you see the result of not getting the support you needed.
I definitely get it. And I'm glad that you brought it up because this is what this
Yes.
conversation is about. It's from a teacher's perspective.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I'm a parent. I'm also an educator parent in the sense that education comes first. Actually, where the center is located, that's one of the things that I noticed when I first opened up our doors because we had a good school system and we still do. I had parents that were just like, we don't need this.
Yeah.
Like, we only come to programs like this if my child's failing. And I
Mhm.
was like, you're going to wait because I have the luxury to be able to be very blunt with the families that
Mhm.
come in here because either you want the services or you don't.
Right.
For that parent that's out there listening, and we want well-rounded kids. Absolutely.
Yes.
You want them to be able to, have extracurricular activities.
Mhm.
But for me, if your grades are suffering, all of that is secondary.
Yes.
And I know in the school system as a teacher, you can't say those things
Mhm.
necessarily, but I'm glad that you were able to say it here because yes, we want to know if you have time for X, Y, and Z, but your child's struggling.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
right. Make it make sense.
So tell me about what it actually feels like to be a teacher right now. I know you just left the general ed to go to special education and you did that for your own reasons, but tell me what it feels like and where is the weight of it and what does that come from?
As a teacher, educator right now, I feel phenomenal. And I really do. A big part of that is because of my transition into the special education field. I was burnt out dealing with general ed, students needing to be diagnosed or tested for certain things. And it's like, no, we don't want to do it, this and that. Everything is a situation. So just being in certain environments and not getting the support that you need, because until a certain student has a special plan, whether or not it's a 504 plan or an IEP, you may a general ed teacher may not get support. Like for instance, I've never worked in a classroom with anyone else. It's always just been me, the lead teacher. I've never had a dedicated aide, no one, unless I had an intern 3 times. But that was only for a month or two. And I realized that I can say the special education field has just opened up my eyes even more because that's all I work with. Every single child.
I love the fact that you said it feels phenomenal
Yeah,
right
it
now
does.
because
It's different.
when educators are in that element and are being able to give their 100%, and I believe that's the reason why summer, and we're in summer now, why you guys need a summer break, because you gotta like rejuvenate to be able to come back.
Yes.
But just so for like the listener out there that doesn't understand or may not know, like when you were in general ed, how many kids were you working with approximately?
The largest class I've ever had was 26.
Okay. And what are you at right now?
Now I have 9 boys at the end of the year. Although 9 is a small number, dealing with children with special needs, children specifically a behavioral school, it feels like 26. I mean, it can, but it just feels different. It's refreshing. And just because my students are special needs doesn't mean that they can't do. And that's one thing that I loved about my class this year. They made me want to come to work. I will really walk out the door smiling. They crack me up. I just enjoyed them. Now, it's not always a happy time. I'm dealing with emotional kids up and down. We have crises. Once one student is done, it could be someone else. I'm in a room. Each class has a program assistant, and I had 2 students with dedicated aides. I did have 3, 1 transfer. So there's 5 adults. Mind you, there's 9 students in the classroom. So I have 5 adults, including myself. It's really intense. Locked doors all the time. It's intense. But it was exciting. It was new. It was something, although I was in the classroom for quite a bit of time, I felt like I was reborn again as an educator because I love to learn. And in the general ed class, I didn't write the IEPs. I attended the meetings and I had to progress monitor their goals and objectives. However, now as the educator, I'm writing the goals, I'm writing the IEPs, I'm just learning more and more and more. I think that is powerful. Like I'm literally writing my students' goals to help them fill those gaps, which I did as a general ed teacher, but not to this extent. This is probably about 60% more involved than I was as a general ed teacher.
And I would even say I have students here, that are on the spectrum. And I do have students that have special needs that come into the center. And a lot of times they need that one-on-one. With 26 students, it was just you.
Just me.
So I don't know how you could even attempt to be able to go that in depth with their goals and the actions to be able to do everything. How do parents, even with their best intentions, actually make your job harder?
They actually don't.
Okay.
I've been blessed, I'll say, because I think a parent-teacher rapport, positive one, is very important. And most of my students know that I have an amazing rapport with their parents. Because once I say something, they just know already. I have to appreciate the parents as much as possible or legal guardian because the village it takes to raise a child is very important. And students see how a teacher is involved with their parents. But you have some who may not want to really be too involved with the parents because what comes with it's a lot. Talking to a parent about their child's academic needs glows and grows, but I always communicate with them, and it's always about the child. I don't care what it is that I'm talking about, it always goes back to the student, the child. I did have a situation with one parent, but this parent was always like that. The previous teachers warned me about this parent, and it was just the father, believe it or not. He had anger issues, but the mother was the calmest woman in the world. He just didn't like hearing things about his son. Even if it's something simple he needs to work on, like he talks a little bit too much, he don't wanna hear it.
I would say that's actually surprising for me because typically, I'll even say here, working with the kids is fine. Sometimes it could be the parents, and the parents can be a little demanding, or it can be all the emails you have to respond to. But I think what I heard you said, which is great, is that it was really your perception of how you were going to approach it.
Mhm.
And approaching it with a positive attitude that, you know what, we're here for the kids.
Right.
I'm not going to get offended by some of the little things that you may say because we're all
Mhm.
here on the same objective, which is to
Right.
support these children.
That's right.
And I think when everybody looks at it that way, all the other little things just go, it's not that important.
Mm.
Oh, you didn't respond to me in 20 minutes. That's fine. Cause I know you had
Mhm.
you respond to me the next day, but you have my child's best interests at heart.
Yes.
And that's the important piece. And I think even the parent that's out there listening and they don't necessarily get the response from the teacher right away, when you know that someone really has your child's best interest at heart,
Mhm.
because what they're really probably doing is they're helping the other 25 kids get what they needed to get done. So when you talk about a teacher, that's what made the difference.
Mm.
And you said then that one parent was just going to be who they are. And I know
Yes.
also too, it's difficult as a mom or as a dad or as a parent to hear anything about your child, especially if it's not rosy,
Yes.
right? And even if we know this is how our child is and this is how they behave, we take it as a reflection of ourselves
Mhm.
and how
Yes.
we may be, a bad parent if
Mhm.
somebody says anything. So, like I tell everybody, just in general, and especially on this podcast, I am not a perfect parent, and your
That's
child
right.
does not need to have a perfect parent. They just need to have a present one.
Yes.
So just showing up is half the battle. So you have seen children who learn differently in every classroom, not just special education. Children who process differently, who need more time, who get frustrated and shut down. Before a child ever gets a formal evaluation, what are the signs a parent should be paying attention to?
Before the student receives a formal evaluation, I would say a parent should look out for certain patterns. It can be something as simple as just being in tune, like you just mentioned, for example, being present. Okay, being present is physically being there, but I have some parents, for instance, or who are there and there is just a body. It doesn't matter. But really being in tune to your child and the patterns that you may see, whether or not it's something as simple as a child writing a number backwards. You're not going to yell and scream, why do you keep writing that 3 backwards or that number 7? I taught you this over and over again. We do it every day. If you've been doing this every single day for a year now, I
Right.
could see if it was a kindergartner because they
Right.
learn that. But come on now, if you're in 4th to 5th grade and you're noticing things, it's a pattern. And if the teacher didn't pick it up and want to start some type of formal evaluation process, the parent, and shout out to my parents because I love them, I communicate with them from the start. When I notice certain things, this is what I'm noticing. This is what can be done to address the situation. Now, if it keeps happening, then we'll go on from there. But really being in tune and not just, yeah, my mom is here. She doesn't work at night, this and that. She did check my homework. She did check it. However, what else did she do?
Right.
I mean, being involved and in tune and identifying patterns at home as well. Something as simple directions. I've had students, I have to chunk the directions. I might say, okay, I need for you to go and help me clean up the library if you don't mind. And after that, can you check this and finally do that? If I say it in a series of steps, it may not get done. And I had to also realize that's a processing
Yeah.
issue. I have to ask the parent, does that happen at home? And they're like, yes, it frustrates me, Miss Hooker. It happens, this and that. And I say, well, in the classroom, I've learned to chunk it in little pieces and they respond better. And the child shuts down because it's like, you're not understanding. I'm really not remembering. I'm like that as an adult. Like, seriously, my grandmother helped me with that. And that's when a lot of frustration can begin to foster within a child. And that's when the confidence piece comes in.
You said it. when you said you have to look at the patterns because the patterns, and like I said, I tell parents I'm not a psychologist,
Right.
but when you work with enough kids, and that's one of the things, let's just do simple math. I mean, 16 years, average of 25 students. You've worked with a lot of
Mhm.
kids over that time frame. I've worked with a lot too. I don't see them every day for a year.
Mhm.
And I saw the same thing, the patterns.
Yeah.
What's off? Where they were able to pick up a book and quickly read, and now they're not reading some more. Or I tell them like to listen to them
Mhm.
read out loud. And you notice like they start mumbling when the words are bigger and that they don't know it.
Mhm.
You'll see them kind of trail down and they'll mumble over the words versus the words they're confident about. They'll be able to speak and they say it loudly. I think you said just being in tune with your child is important.
Mhm.
Like noticing, like you said, if they're trying something new and they're struggling with it, it's okay. But if it's something that's happening over and over again, and you hit another big piece when you said processing, I didn't know what a processing disorder was or not when I first started with Kumon, but I see it so many times where it's
Yeah.
like, one of the first things we do, even with our early learners, is we read the directions. And, typically most students, if I read it, there's 10 pages and there's one directions on the front and back and they're repeated. So I've said it 20 times. Most students by the middle of the packet are saying the directions
Mhm.
because they anticipate it coming and then they know what is going to be
Mhm.
next. And then I have some that just, aren't getting it. And so I never say where a child is supposed to be,
Mhm.
but I do a lot of times say, well, I've noticed this pattern in students before and that they had to get an assessment on X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
because this is just not how most of the students are processing the
Mhm.
information. Or I myself, I struggled with numbers being backwards way beyond kind of what is the norm. Because like you said, I get the kindergarten parents are like, they're writing their sevens backwards and the
Mhm.
P's and the Q's. I'm like, okay, just give it time.
Right.
Second grade, if they're still doing that, or you've been
Yes.
doing our program consistently and they're still doing it, then go follow up
Mhm.
on it. But it is just being in tune with your child is a huge thing. But wow, that's the signs. So when a child comes in and you can tell their home life is solid, what does that actually look like? What are those parents doing?
If I can tell that there are no, I guess, challenges within the student's household, usually the student comes, homework is always completed, everything is brought back, whether or not it's some type of permission slip or
Mhm.
whatever. The student is well dressed, and I don't mean like name brand clothes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like cleanliness. You could tell they ate breakfast, even though we serve breakfast. Some students like to eat at home. So, depending on how hungry they are, if someone ate the previous night. You could tell they have a structured environment because they bring that structure into the classroom. It could be something simple as washing your hands before you eat. They're respectful. They're not as tired. That's a sign
Mhm.
right off the back for me because students who come in tired, I'm talking about as soon as you walk in a classroom and you already on a bus for 40 minutes coming from somewhere and you get to school after sleeping on a bus and coming into the
Yeah.
classroom, like that is a problem. What is your child doing up so late? And how come he or she isn't asleep? You know,
Yeah.
the type of snacks they may bring in, how they want to eat. I'm talking about so many things that can, and it doesn't always look the same for each student. So, really, after meeting some parents, because looks can be deceiving, because some students can come in and I find out some things from maybe the counselor or school psychologist shared just personally about the home life of
Yeah.
the parent, and you'll be surprised.
Mm.
Just like when they say, maybe how someone's house looks from getting in their car. Everything look nice on the outside, but in the inside, it's just a mess. It's chaotic all over the place. And that's a tricky question because I just know in my field, you never know. And I say that because I had a student, second grader. She was phenomenal, well mannered, hair always done, just bathed, smelled good, always did her homework, hard worker, worried about pleasing her parents and
Mhm.
making me happy as her teacher. And I found out she was from a divorced home. The mother and the father had a lot of issues. I started to notice that as well because she actually would come in better groomed after living with the father opposed to them. That was shocking to me. But no, looks can be deceiving. And when things of that nature approaches, then you take it upon yourself to work with the family. And if I don't feel comfortable, something that's unsanitary, or I feel like the student is being neglected, I could talk to the nurse, the principal to that nature, and we'll go about how to handle the situation. But yeah, you can be surprised.
What I see, and one of the things I want to point out that you said that everybody can listen to. It's not even about a diagnosis of where a
Mhm.
child's at. Some of the things that you talked about, children that you notice come from a solid household, are very simple.
Mhm.
Making sure they got sleep,
Mhm.
making sure that they get fed,
Yes.
making sure that they're together. So, not necessarily scrambling to get all their things together. And I
Mhm.
know it can be challenging
Yep.
because, like you said, my kids were divorced. So they came from two
Me
different homes on
too.
different weekends. But
Mhm.
just, setting that routine of like, do we have everything together? So when we get to
Yes.
school, there's consistency
Mhm.
across it. And so these are things that any parent can do starting this week. If everything else might be going awry,
Mm.
and academically they may be struggling, and even begin sometimes struggling also hits behavioral, and behavior also impacts the academics, so they go
Mhm.
hand in hand. But some of the basics that you just talked about are things that people can do to help provide a more solid foundation for
Mhm.
the children in the classroom.
And they feel good. If a female comes, her hair's not done or this and she's shutting down.
Yeah.
The little kids take pride, the younger ones, in what they look like just as much as we do as adults.
Yeah.
You'll be very surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that you talked about early on in the conversation, you talked about regulation. Well, we have to sometimes regulate ourselves as
Yes.
educators before even that child
Absolutely.
walks into the classroom, as they're going
Mhm.
to do on their first day. When you talked about your classroom, I saw a place of peace where it's like, you're going to come in here, you're going to be engaged, we're going to learn, but it's also a safe space and it's a
Yes.
peaceful place. And that starts with regulating ourselves. Well, the R for the Race Scholar Framework is regulation before rigor. And
That's
just having
right.
that environment where they can have that peace. And then you just talked about very simple steps that people can take at home that they can do to make sure when they come into the classroom that they're ready to learn, like
Mhm.
eating and sleeping well.
Yes.
When you
Mhm.
feel good, you look good. So
Yeah.
just being able to be prepared that I'm not rushing and I have everything is really important. Overall, as we close out, I just want to say thank you for being an educator. It is a thankless job at times, but the joy that we get
Mhm.
from those kids, the excitement to
Mhm.
see one of them grow and to know that we had an impact on that. Because unfortunately, there are some kids out there that don't have a regulated home environment, and their safe space is the classroom. So thank you for providing that safe space for these students. Thank you for taking the time to share what it looks like in the classroom and what parents can do and what we can do to better support our children, whether they're in general ed or special or
Mhm.
anywhere in between. There's just some basic underlinings that's still the same and it's still consistent. Twanda, what I want to say on behalf of every parent listening, thank you. Not just for this conversation, but for showing up for our children who need someone in their corner. What I want every parent to take away from this is your child's teacher is not on the other side of the table from you. They're on the same side. And the more you understand what they see, the better partner you can be for your child. So I just want to say thank you for what you do, how you pour into these children. We're so fortunate to have someone like you.
Yes.
Yep.
And again, this experience has been amazing. What I've observed and experienced in being an educator in New Jersey and in Maryland and the District of Columbia, despite the location, I can just say the educator in me is always the same. It's mainly the technique and how I deliver what I do to the students. And what I mean by what I do is dependent on the student. It's
Yeah.
not always the same. But I thank you as well. I just love your passion and enthusiasm, and you don't really see it too often nowadays in the education field. So for you to possess so much excitement and passion, and that's after a day of school. That's hard to have students want to come somewhere and work on academics after school and they want to come. And for years, it speaks high volumes. And I'm just glad that I could participate.
All
And I
right.
thank you so much.
I'm Jacquie Langworthy. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Twanda, for this conversation and for the work you do every single day for children who need someone in their corner. If this episode landed for you, share it with a parent tonight. Head to raisingscholarspodcast.com, download the free Raise Scholar Framework Guide, It's completely free. Find us on YouTube and search Raising Scholars Sunday Reset and subscribe for one tip every Sunday. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week.